Hey guys, Level Cap here, and today I am really excited to be talking about Star Citizen once again. This little intro clip in what you're watching in the background here is a new teaser trailer for Squadron 42, which is the single player component of Star Citizen, and it looks phenomenal. Honestly, it's been difficult to stay up to date with Star Citizen simply because the sheer volume of information that comes out about this game on a weekly basis is just massive. Not to mention it is still only playable in a test environment, so we don't have that fully immersive reactive game world yet to test things out in. It's still sort of a sandbox with things that aren't quite working and whatnot. So a lot of time I just like tune in every once in a while, read up, get deep into the intel of what's going on, and then I force myself to tune out simply because I want to play this game so bad, and just being teased constantly about what's coming out about it is somewhat painful. Now, there's usually several events each year that really turn my head, and this year's CitizenCon does not disappoint. Massive planets, new industrial cities, a fully functional transit train system, new ships including the Kraken, which is a player-owned carrier, a star-studded single-player trailer, savanna biomes on some of the new planets, which includes trees and cacti, planet-side ship and ground vehicle combat, improved character fidelity, which makes Mark Hamill and all the other actors look incredible, and quite frankly, a whole lot more information that I'm going to be able to include in this video by far. And of course, if you're feeling like taking that Star Citizen plunge and buying into the game's test universe, you can use my referral code when creating an account to get some bonus credits, and it'll help me unlock future ships to test out. And by the way, thanks to your help, I was able to unlock the massive Javelin Destroyer. This is the largest player-controlled ship in-game so far. I don't know if they're going to announce anything bigger, but at the moment, this thing dwarfs everything else in the game. It looks awesome. It's the ship you saw in the beginning of the trailer, and hopefully one day I'll be able to show it to you guys. I don't know if they're saving that ship for the single player campaign, as it's obviously in the single player. Maybe they don't want to ruin sort of the scale or the impressiveness of it, but I will be able to fly it around one day in the multiplayer universe. All right, now let's get into CitizenCon, starting off with Loreville. This is the city in which many of the onstage demonstrations take place. Loreville is a just massive industrial city which is located on the arid planet called Hurston. Hurston will be one of the new planets available to play in the upcoming 3.3 or 3.35 patch. And it's roughly like 1/6 the scale of Earth, and not necessarily because Star Citizen couldn't make planets bigger, but simply because they felt that the travel times would be just too darn long on a full-scale planet, as they are pretty long as is. And you can see from the demo that just traveling around Loreville is incredibly deep, immersive, and somewhat time-consuming already. They jokingly were referring to the game as Commuter Citizen while the player was standing around and waiting for a train to arrive and whisk them off to another area of the city to grab a mission or go shopping or something like that. And at one point they barely caught a train, and one of the devs mentioned that the wait time was currently something like 5 minutes between trains, and I'm thinking like, oh my god, this game better not become like a second job or a second life, if you will. I did make a video a while back talking about the time it takes to just do basic things in this game and how that could be a turnoff for me in the long run. But again, every time I just see the scope and the impressive factor of this game, I'm thinking like, maybe it's worth it. Maybe having those incredibly long times to do certain tasks is going to make the value of accomplishing major things in the game that much more impressive. We'll have to wait and see. Now, the visuals and art direction from the city are just simply amazing. There's a giant Tyrell Corp style building towards the center of the city that's 4 kilometers tall, and you can certainly believe it when comparing it to some of the other skyscrapers nearby. This is really the first time that we've done any sort of more in-depth exploration of a large-scale city. We've seen demonstrations of city planets in the past and sort of smaller built out areas within those cities, but this is the first time that the player is taking trains around the city and moving through the city and then taking off and flying over it and then coming back and landing on the outskirts and going in through different entrances. And you can see that the city itself does actually exist, which again is really crazy. It kind of creeps me out to an extent because you compare it to other games like, I don't know, Cyberpunk 2077, which is going to exist in this one massive cyber city, but that game is like nothing compared to the scale of what Star Citizen is doing just on this one city comparison factor. And then there's an entire planet outside of Loreville to explore, and then an entire galaxy outside of Hurston to explore. And it makes me feel often like they're just doing too much with this game. Like, obviously I want to play it someday. Let's just scale it back, guys. It's getting too crazy. But I think that's what really draws me into the game at the same time. Is just like, the scope of this game is basically infinite. This could be an everlasting game, one of those games that gets updated forever, for generations and generations, because the scope is that big and it'll never run out of things to create or things to add or things to do. So it's kind of exciting as an old school fan of EVE Online and sort of what that game was going for. This is sort of like the fully realized scope of what could be done in such a massive, persistent universe. Now, continuing on with the Star Citizen demonstration, our player receives a mission from a local guy there. He goes out to collect some data or some hardware from a downed satellite. We fly out of the city in a cool spaceship, our Mustang, and we take a while to get to the destination, sort of admiring the visuals, the beauty of the planet, and the new biomes. Now, we've seen procedurally generated planets and moons before, but this is the first time we're seeing a little bit more of the flora, the trees and cacti, and it just looks a bit more realistic. And then when the player finally lands on the ground, you can see that the ground detail and the plant life and stuff like that is actually incredibly well rendered and well realized. The graphics don't just stop at cool looking spaceships. They do ground details and ground textures really well also. And of course, one of the trademark things about Star Citizen presentations is that things don't always go according to plan or things go wrong. Star Citizen's a massive simulation, and they're always trying to show us what the most new things in the game are. Things that were getting implemented a day or two before this actual presentation are thrown into the game. And so the player misses some jumps, they die here and there, there's some little glitchy moments. But then we eventually do get into a firefight and a spaceship flying overhead. Now, this is where some of the clunky animations and stuff, and also the fact that the person playing there wasn't a particularly good shot, makes the game look a little bit clunky. I'm definitely looking forward to some of the ship upgrades that change the propulsion and controls and stuff like that, maybe to make them look a little bit more realistic, especially when landing. The ships look very fake. It looks like somebody's moving a 3D model around a 3D modeling program or something like that. It almost feels like the ships don't have any weight or mass to them as they're moving around. And then the character models and the players and stuff like that do look still kind of clunky, and there's lots of ragdolls kind of flying through the air here and whatnot. Again, this isn't supposed to be a demonstration of the amazing polish of Star Citizen, but rather the capabilities and where it's going. And then, of course, in the same vein, the UI is still pretty damn clunky. I mean, they make picking up objects and opening doors a complicated process, which literally isn't complicated in any other game. And then mobiGlas is sort of like a cell phone from hell, where the user interface makes no sense and everything's overly complicated. One thing that I really did enjoy, and not because it was well polished, but completely the opposite, is their new VoIP system. Now, you might have heard of VoIP, which is voice over IP. VoIP is face over IP, which is supposed to like actually bring your personal expressions into your 3D character when you're doing video conference calls in games. It sounds awesome, right? You know, in Star Trek, when they hail another ship and a big screen pops up and you see the captain and he's talking and they exchange words or whatever, and you can see the expressions on faces. Well, that's the idea with Star Citizen, is to have your in-game character be able to represent the expressions of your face. And I think they do it with a camera system, which is really cool, super advanced, and I love that they're going for this. It was not calibrated during the demo, and it just like led to one of the funniest presentations I ever saw. And it was just so funny because they're trying to show off this new tech, and you just got an NPC here like making fish faces and stuff the whole time, and it was delightful.
Yeah, that sounds good. If I'm in the area, I'll definitely join up with Did he calibrate, by the way?
You look interested.
Definitely.
All right, man. I'll catch you out there, yeah? Meet up with you.
All right, man. Later.
Now let's talk about the single player trailer briefly. We got to see a lot of repeat clips, but also some new or just updated clips with Gillian Anderson, Gary Oldman, Mark Hamill, and frankly a lot more. The initial character models have been greatly updated, and it's clear that there's a lot of depth and lore being created around the solo play experience. As if that wasn't already obvious from just everything else about the game, the trailer further drives that message. I almost never get excited for single player experiences, but I have to say the universe of Star Citizen is so rich and interesting that I want to know more about it, especially if I get to learn about it from a single player experience of a military pilot flying wingman for a Star Citizen version of Mark Hamill. I mean, it sounds freaking badass. And then, of course, single player trailer aside, the Kraken trailer is probably the next coolest thing to watch. This ship concept was discussed a while back as people were asking about the availability of a player-controlled carrier platform that their friends or org could land ships at and even treat as sort of a home base environment. Well, the Star Citizen team has created the ship and they named it the Kraken. It looks interesting, kind of like a space station that has engines and a bridge on top. Spaceships can certainly put function over form, and that's what the Kraken seems to be doing. It doesn't matter too much to me because the idea of a player-controlled carrier in game is just so darn cool. I don't really care that much what it looks like. In the trailer, we get to see it launch a complement of Drake ships to blow up some local riffraff and then return to base. I mean, honestly, what's not to like? We're getting player-controlled carriers in the game, so very cool. Then, of course, there's the Valkyrie reveal trailer. Who doesn't like a troop transport with man turrets and then room for an armored vehicle as well? Reminds me a lot of the Pelican from Halo. Primarily, the original Star Citizen concept was going to focus on space combat and space battles, but now that planetary stuff has become so fleshed out and so popular, it seems like there could be a lot of really cool planet-side battles and planet-side missions where ships like the Valkyrie could play a major role. We also get a Mustang trailer showing off different versions of the ship and what you can do in it. This is one of the starter ships, I believe, so it's pretty cool looking. I love this super open cockpit design, and we also get to fly around and experience the Mustang in the demo, and it is nice just to be able to have such an incredible open view of the world as you fly around and explore it. There is also just a ton of details about game design and changes that are being made, so if you play Star Citizen at all, you'll probably be pretty happy to know that there's being a big overhaul done to the spaceship control mechanics. Hopefully we'll have a more finalized version of spaceship controls in the near future so that pilots can start to hone their skills in and be ready for the final game and to figure out what control scheme that they like. Also, aerodynamics are being incorporated much more to atmospheric flight, so certain ships that are designed to be more aerodynamic will perform and handle a lot better in atmosphere, which is really cool. So it makes sense now for ships to have these cool, sleek-looking designs, sort of like in Star Wars, you know, the X-Wing looks like it could fly in atmosphere well, where the TIE Fighter doesn't really look like it's designed for that kind of combat. And so having Star Citizen having those differences in design actually affecting their performance is really interesting. It could mean that if I pick a fighter that's decent at space combat but also has great aerodynamics for atmospheric combat, if I'm in a battle that's not going my way, I can potentially retreat to a planet and maybe try and tip the scales in my favor if I know my enemy ships aren't going to perform as well in the atmosphere. So I love the ideas behind that and just the strategy that could evolve from that. Also, speaking of atmosphere, the gas clouds in space look really phenomenal, and if you ever wondered how video games could make space more interesting, then you definitely haven't seen this part of the demo. Gas, debris, and lightning strikes make this potential mining area and just sort of exploratory area super dangerous and totally awesome. I mean, lightning is striking massive asteroids and rocks and having them explode and creating more dust and debris. It did look pretty darn taxing on the computer hardware, but you know, there's always time for optimization. In terms of what's going on today, people on the PTU seem to be getting into 3.3, testing things out. There's been some reports that performance is actually doing pretty well on many computers right now. People are reporting 70 to 90 FPS, which for Star Citizen is like ridiculous. I don't know if everybody's going to experience that, but just from reading some posts and stuff on Reddit, it sounds pretty damn promising. Anyway, guys, there's like a billion times more information than what I'm saying in this video here. But alas, I have to wrap things up. I actually have a plane that I need to catch, so I got to edit and upload this thing ASAP. I hope this helped kind of summarize some of the things that are going on in CitizenCon right now. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to use my referral code if you're thinking about signing up for an account for this game. And I'll see you guys next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.